Let's go ahead and move on to a couple other running backs that we're a little bit concerned about. I didn't want to throw Hunt up against these two guys because for me and you both, I think we're both going to take these two players over Kareem Hunt just because of the usage they've been getting and the draft capital you had to spend on them. It's Kenyan Drake and Joe Mixon. So I'm holding on to Kenyan Drake and Joe Mixon right now. Both have been kind of frustrating to start out the season. A ton of volume, but not a lot of efficiency and not a lot of touchdowns. So Steph, between Drake and Mixon, are you concerned? I want you to give me a scale of 1 to 10. First on Kenyan Drake, 1 being not concerned at all, 10 being extremely concerned. Where are you at with Drake?
Drake, I think I'm at about 3 or 4. Not really concerned. And what that really comes down to for me is the touchdown volume. Drake had 8 touchdowns, essentially averaging 1 per game. I know they did come in some boom weeks last year when he was with the Cardinals, when he switched over from Miami. But Kyler Murray's had 1 rushing touchdown, 1 or 2 rushing touchdowns per game so far this season. I don't think that's going to be something that we can just expect every single week. I think there will be some regression on the ground for Kyler in the red zone, and I have no reason why that wouldn't go to Drake when he's getting 70% of snaps, 15 to 20 carries on the ground a week, a few targets a week. I have been disappointed by Drake's pass catching volume. That is something that I really didn't see coming. The way they were using Drake in 2019 was getting him open on screens, getting him open on checkdowns. But with DeAndre Hopkins out there as an option that Murray can look to pretty much every single play, and 9 times out of 10, it seems like he's going to be open. Really haven't needed a ton of the checkdown options. And then Kyler's been able to, he looks so good on the ground right now, had incredible juke on the goal line, kind of beating his man to the outside and doing a little move on him. It was just great to see. Love that to watch from a football-only perspective. Sucks if you're a Drake owner, but I think things are going to change for the better as the season goes on. Don't overreact on Drake. I'm not selling him yet.
One thing I'm saying about Drake is I'm trying to buy Kenyan Drake low right now because he hasn't killed people that drafted him in the first round. He's only averaging 11.6 fantasy points per game in PPR format. So that doesn't kill you. If you started him, he's fine, but you're definitely incredibly disappointed. And when I look at Kenyan Drake, he's averaging 18 carries per game. You're right, the receiving workload is a little bit low, but he's still getting a couple targets a game, which helps. Only the 1 touchdown, and this last week against Detroit put up a single-digit fantasy football performance. So for me, the Drake owner, if they were going into week 3 already disappointed, and they're like, all right, Kenyan Drake, this is your time to prove to me what you can do in a good matchup against the Detroit Lions, and he underperformed, this is where you go in and buy Kenyan Drake low because people are going to be disappointed, and he is getting the volume, and things are going to turn around. Listen to the next 5 games for the Arizona Cardinals. They have the Panthers, terrible run defense. They have the New York Jets, the Dallas Cowboys, the Seattle Seahawks, and the Miami Dolphins. So those are going to be high-volume games. I think those are all going to have incredibly high over-unders. The Cardinals are a team that love, to run this fast pace of play and score a bunch of points on their own. Their defense isn't necessarily anything special. So I think Kenyan Drake's going to bounce back in a big way. And the second he has one of these big games, the buy low window is going to be over. And right now, I'm telling you, people are going to be low on Kenyan Drake. They're not just going to sell him for nothing, but they're going to be low. Listen to some of the guys that have more fantasy points than Kenyan Drake through 3 weeks. This is more just for fun because it shows you how fantasy football is incredibly unpredictable. Like, welcome to week 4 when Myles Gaskin, Nyheim Hines, Mike Davis, Darrell Henderson, Jerick McKinnon, and Rex Burkhead all have more fantasy points than Kenyan Drake. So go in, make some offers, put some feelers out there, and see what the Kenyan Drake manager is willing to do, and maybe you'll get a stud running back for the rest of the season. And at worst case, I think he's an RB2, a high-end RB2. So, Steph, let's really quickly flip over to Joe Mixon. On that scale of 1 to 10, if I was a 3 or 4 for Drake, I'm like a 6 or 7 now for Joe Mixon. Goes into this game against the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm really hoping for a bounce back here. And yes, he's getting volume as well, but that offensive line looks absolutely atrocious. Steph, where's your concern level for Joe Mixon on a scale of 1 to 10?
It's about that 6-7 range. He's still a workhorse back in the NFL, extremely talented. It's just that O-line. Joe Burrow took 8 sacks in this game. I have concerns for him long-term, his health this season. They need to put some protection around Joe Burrow and allow things to get going on the ground for Joe Mixon. And it was good to see over the first 2 games, Joe Mixon was under a 60% snap share. This game he was at 71% in a pretty close matchup, a game that ended in a tie, had 17 attempts for 49 yards, only 2.9 carries on the ground. That's where we're seeing that O-line really dig into his production. He's getting hit behind the line of scrimmage, trying to make plays from there. It's gross to see. It almost reminds you of like Le'Veon Bell last year, where it's just like he looked good. He was making guys miss, but just wasn't able to get upfield because he's had 4 guys on him. By the time he gets the ball in the backfield, he did see 3 targets. Mixon did in this game, caught 2 of them for 16 yards. So you just got to keep plugging Mixon in. It's concerning. It's gross. The Gio Bernard stuff is like that's not really the source of my concern. It really comes down to the O-line in this offense. But as a guy that believes in Joe Burrow, both for fantasy and non-fantasy, being able to improve as the season goes on, I think Joe Mixon's going to be a benefactor of that if this offense can get going. We'll see if they can do it in week 4 against Jacksonville. This will probably be the last kind of like make or break game for me.
The last straw.
It really is. If Mixon goes into Jacksonville and puts up, sub 10 points, that concern level is going to be at a 9 or 10.
Yeah, I agree. And it's a combination of factors, like you said. It's the offensive line is total trash. And yes, they can turn it around. We saw Joe Mixon himself do it last season. But to me, I'm a little bit more worried about Giovanni Bernard. I mean, Bernard's averaging 4 receptions a game right now, where Joe Mixon's only averaging, a little over 2. So to me, if Joe Mixon, even with the struggles, he's getting the carries, even with the struggles on the ground, 3.2 yards per carry so far this season, if he had a game with, 50 yards on the ground, but he also had 4 catches for 30 yards, he's getting you a much higher floor than we're seeing now. It's just been a big problem in a variety of ways, like no touchdowns, no receiving work, and no efficiency on the ground. And without those 3 things, you're just not going to be a good fantasy football running back. Those are 3 areas where we thought we would see Mixon improve this year. We thought the line would be better than it was last season. We thought the receiving work would be there because he can do it. It's not a matter of skill. It's almost like Josh Jacobs last year. We knew Josh Jacobs was a good pass catcher, but for whatever reason, Jalen Richard kept getting the work. That's how it feels in Cincinnati this year with Joe Mixon and Gio Bernard. And the defense is bad, so they're going to be in these negative game scripts. And if Gio Bernard's the one out there in those passing situations, those third down situations, it's going to be tough for Joe Mixon to get going. So I think we could see, some improvement from the O-line. Hopefully we start to see Mixon out there on those passing downs, and a touchdown or 2 will totally change things for Mixon as well. But right now I'm much more panicked about Joe Mixon, and I don't feel confident enough to go out and buy Joe Mixon right now unless someone's giving him away. And if you have him, you can't do anything except hold. I mean, if you trade him, you're not going to get anything for him. And you don't want to bench him. I think you just have to hold and play him and give him a couple more weeks and see what happens. And you're kind of stuck.